My name is Kimberly Brown Harden, and I am the Northwest Regional Coordinator from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be your host and moderator for today. Our presenter is Ms. Michelle Hayes. She's the leader and curator for the Center for Black Literature and Culture at the Indianapolis Public Library's Central Library. I'd like to start out this webinar with just a few announcements. This webinar is part of our online training series. To register for other webinars available for this theme or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. For a full list of our current in-person training menu, please see our continuing education website. The Indiana State Library has many ways we try to stay connected to library staff across the state. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word. We also offer a blog which provides information about the Indiana State Collection, interview spotlights on library staff from across the state, and information about upcoming events at the Indiana State Library. If you have a question, just type it into the chat box on the upper left side of the screen. I will be watching and will get your question to Michelle as soon as there is a good opportunity. There should also be time near the end for questions. This session is 1 hour, so you'll get 1 LEU for today. After the webinar, please download the LEU. You'll click on the link, press download, and you can then print it out and sign your name. There will also be a link for today's survey for this webinar. Please take a brief survey about this webinar. It helps us to offer more trainings and to improve what we currently do. If at any point during the webinar you experience any sound issues, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box on the left side of the screen. If there is a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat pod. If you are unable to resolve the sound issues you are experiencing, we are recording the meeting and you can watch it offline after the meeting has ended. Again, if there is a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in the chat box. Now I would like to turn the mic over to my colleague, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate that. I'm really excited about being able to talk to librarians across the state. I really appreciate the Indiana State Library and Kimberly Brown Harden for presenting these opportunities for training. Oftentimes it's hard to get off the desk and it's difficult to get out of the building. So the webinars are a great way to be able to keep up on current trends in the field. So without further ado, I will begin. I am the leader of the Center for Black Literature and Culture, and that is located at Central Library, which is in downtown Indianapolis, and we're part of the Indianapolis Public Library. So we opened up our facility in October of 2017. And so here is kind of like a high overview of the timeline. I was selected for the position in December of 2016. And so at that point, I started thinking about how we would structure this, what this would look like, and I started doing research. And then that culminated October of 2017. So that was a very, very aggressive timeline, and it was very challenging. So we were physically changing the space where we were going to be located, and we're located in the Pianist West Reading Room, which is in the Craig, which is in the original portion of the library, which is now 100 years old. We also had to create the collection, have a collection development plan. We had to publicize the initiative so that people would come out and support us, and then also creating a plan for the grand opening. So it was very challenging, but also very, very exciting. So without the African American History Committee, the Center for Black Literature and Culture could not exist. So the African American History Committee is a committee made up of IndyPL staff members, and this was formed in 1978. And the staff members' names are shown on the screen there. And then the picture you see is a picture from toward the beginning, but not all of the original members. Tony Radford is shown in that picture, Orvella Fields, Georgia Cravey, and those individuals were instrumental in moving us to where we are right now. And so the African American History Committee from 1978 to right now, they have done an amazing job of bringing in speakers and poets and authors who are part of the African diaspora to share with the people in Indianapolis. And so with that work being done since 1978, they have gotten the soil ready and put us to a position where we could create the Center for Black Literature and Culture, and it could be the great success it is right now. So some of the things that we've done throughout the years, we've had Maya Angelou, we've had James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni has been here several times. We've had our Meet the Artists, which this year we had our 30th anniversary, and Tony Radford is the artist in residence, and that was his brainchild. And then we've also had Fall Fest Slamming Rhymes. So those are some of our key programs that we've had throughout the years. And so with people supporting that, we've been able to move forward, and now to where we are in 2018, having a physical presence and be able to kind of push it to the next level. So the mission of the African American History Committee is to celebrate African American culture through educational and cultural programming, to provide services and collections of interest to the community at large, and to present diverse accomplishments and the heritage of African Americans to the general public. And so what we've done with the CBLC is we've kind of taken that to the next level. And here's a picture of some of the members of the African American History Committee. I always think it's really important to talk about the people that are toiling behind the scenes because they're doing the work that's so important that leads us to where we need to be. Cordia Watkins is chairperson of the African American History Committee right now, and Carol Schlakey is the sponsor. And then we have the rest of the members that are listed there. And this is a picture from when Nikki Giovanni came in 2015. She was an amazing speaker. She spoke to a standing only crowd, even overflow was full. She signed autographs for hours and hours, and she was just an amazing person and really inspiring. And so every time I see her, she's better than the last time. So wow. If you get an opportunity to go see Nikki Giovanni or bring her to your library, I would definitely encourage you to do that. You will not be disappointed. And for those of you who are not aware, she's part of the Black Arts Movement. She's a poet and an activist. Her latest book is A Good Cry, which is kind of biographical, and it kind of gives you a different viewpoint on who she is and how she came to be where she is right now. And so if you get a chance, check out her new book, A Good Cry. I would definitely do that. So some people might wonder, okay, why did you open up the Center for Black Literature and Culture? And for those of you that are not familiar, the center is a permanent fixed area in the library, and I'll be showing you some pictures of that in a moment. And so this is not just something that we're doing in February. This is not just Black History Month. I like to tell people that we're Black 365, and so our programming supports that. And so we have a strategic plan, and it runs from 2015 to 2020. And so part of that is that we had a commitment to celebrate Indianapolis diversity, and we wanted to do that through the CBLC. We also wanted the Center for Black Literature and Culture to be identified as a community place for conversations about the Black experience and race relations. And so we wanted people to feel like this was their space, not just the library space. And so since we've been open in October, people have really gravitated to us. They come in and study, they come in and just meet, hang out, school groups, tours. So we're really, really excited about people really embracing the Center for Black Literature and Culture, and we really appreciate that. So the purpose for the CBLC is to ensure the Black experience is not only remembered, but made easily accessible for inspiring and encouraging others. Indiana's current Poet Laureate, Adrian Matika, this was something that he talked about many times, that when he was in high school, he didn't really have a place to go where he can find this information. And so we don't want future generations to have that same problem. We want them to know that there's a place where they can go, learn, be inspired, and find those materials that will stoke their creativity. The U.S. Census in 2020 shows that African Americans are 30% of the population here in Indianapolis. And they also accounted for nearly half of all the population growth in Indianapolis-Marion County. So that's very significant. And so with that being said, we needed to be able to speak to the needs of that particular population. Also, for many years, we've had an African American collection in our library, but recently it had not been maintained as well as it could have. And so having the Center for Black Literature and Culture is going to enable us to add to that collection and maintain it and to continue to grow it over time. So here is a picture of the Pianist West Reading Room as it looked before we transformed it. So if you can see that, it is a traditional reading room with rows of shelves and books and comfortable seating, and not something where you could change the space up very much. And so part of what I was tasked to do was to reimagine that space and to bring in images that would focus on primarily heroes and sheroes from Indianapolis, but also Indiana and also all over the world. And that was very, very challenging, but we had a group of people, internal as well as external, to help us with that. And so we had obviously facilities, communications, the collection development department, and then externally we had RLR Associates who helped us with the design and getting our vision to come to life. And so for a long time it was just words on the paper and kind of things in your mind. It was very ephemeral. And so when it really came together and we opened up in October, it really exceeded a lot of my expectations. It really just blew me out of the water. So here's another picture of the north end of the Pianist reading room. And so that is a working fireplace, and so that's a really nice area. People like to sit there in the wintertime. It's a great place to read and kind of contemplate. And then I will be showing you some pictures later on of how the space looks after the transformation. So the next thing I wanted to talk about were windows and mirrors. And many of you are probably familiar with that term, but I'm going to delve into it anyway, just to make sure that we're kind of on the same page with that. And so part of what we're doing with the Center for Black Literature and Culture, we want this to be a place that's windows for people that are unfamiliar with the African diaspora. So people that don't know very much about that culture or history, we want them to be able to dive in and to learn more in a comfortable environment and setting. And then the mirrors aspect, that's for people that are of African descent, for them to be able to see themselves in a positive light, reflected through literature, culture, and the rich Black experience. So it's important to understand that the history of people of African descent is not just here in North America. It's more than just slavery in the Middle Passage. We came from the continent of Africa, and we've gone all over the world, and we've had a huge impact. And so we know now in 2018 that a lot of times that history has been eradicated from the history books. It's been purposely cut out. I think most people are quite familiar with Hidden Figures. And so that was a great example of women who did a lot to help pre-NASA, so before it was NASA, but the space program, and they were literally and figuratively cut out of that history. Mm-hmm. And so it's important not just for people of color to know that, but it's also very important for other races and cultures to understand what we've brought to the table. because we're all here together and we've all brought something, and it's just important to know the totality of that. And so we're trying to tell that story in some small way in the Center for Black Literature and Culture. So one thing that we wanted to touch upon in the Center for Black Literature and Culture is that when you visit our space, we want you to think of depth. So you might say, oh gosh, I don't want to go downtown, I don't want to, worry with that. But when you come to our space, you're looking for depth. So you're looking for everything available for Maya Angelou or Mari Evans or Etheridge Knight. And if not everything they've ever created, as much as we can possibly obtain. So more than just kind of their highlights or their most popular book, but their whole work of knowledge, so that you can have a real understanding of who they are, what they've experienced, and what they've been sharing with the world. So African American authors and themes are going to remain throughout the system, and also in all other parts of Central. But again, when you come to the Center for Black Literature and Culture, you're going to be seeing depth there. Another great thing about IndyPL system is that you can request books and have them sent to a location that's convenient for you. So let's say you work near East 38th Street, you can have a book sent to East 38th Street. Let's say you live in Nora and you want a book sent there. You can definitely do that. So we encourage everyone to come to the Center for Black Literature and Culture, but if that is not something that you're able to do, then you can definitely request a book and have it sent to any location that's convenient for you. So we're glad that there are lots of options for people to be able to kind of delve in and really learn more about it. When we opened up the collection, we had about 10,000 pieces in the collection. And so books, magazines, movies, DVDs. And so that's a combination of new things and also things that we had that were existing in our collection. And so ultimately, the space will fit about 40,000 volumes. So this is a 5-year grant that we're under, and we received the grant from Lilly Endowment, and we received $1.3 million, and we're really, really excited and grateful to Lilly Endowment for giving that to us and being able to let us kind of move forward and make this huge impact in the city. And so we're going to continue to grow the collection. We're definitely open to feedback from patrons in the community about books that they would like to see or topics. And it's just really, really exciting to see the collection kind of grow and people really take a hold of it. Circulation numbers are looking really good, even though we're only about 6 or 7 months in. Especially the music, people are really gravitating to the music, and so we're really, really excited about that. So it's, a labor of love, but we're just continuing to work on it bit by bit and day by day. And so we really encourage people to come to the library, to check out books, to see what we have to offer. And even beyond the books that we have to offer, we also have exhibits. We also have programming throughout the year. So as I said before, we're not just Black during February, we're Black 365, and our programming really reflects that. So one of the 9 themes of the strategic plan for IndyPL is having a third place. And so a third place is not work or home, but it's a place where you kind of go and gather, hang out, study, reflect. And the Center for Black Literature and Culture is really becoming that. And so as I said before, people are coming there to study, they're coming to meet up with groups, they're coming to be inspired, they're bringing school groups, parents are bringing their children, and so it's really becoming what we were looking for it to become, which is a community place, because we want people to have ownership in that. And so libraries don't mean anything if people don't come and enjoy what's there. And so we wanted it to be a welcoming and inviting space. And I think that really has come to fruition because people are really gravitating to it, and they're really having ownership of it, and they're really very excited about what we've been able to do. So that third place is really critical to what we're doing. And so if you are part of a community organization and you would like to have something in the Center for Black Literature and Culture, feel free to send me an email. And I have my email at the very end of today's PowerPoint if you would like to reach out to me. Something that I feel like is very important that we focus on in the Center for Black Literature and Culture is the fact that Black history is American history is world history. And so there's a quote there by Yvette Clarke, and I won't read that to you. You all can read that to yourselves. But that's a big part of what we want to do. We want to put Black history back into the regular canon of history and what's important in America. And so it's important not just for people of color to know that, but for other individuals to know that. Because as long as you make assumptions about the contributions of a huge portion of the population, you're going to have these slanted kind of dynamics. And so I feel like one thing we're able to do with the Center for Black Literature and Culture is to really illuminate the heroes and sheroes. Something that we definitely focused on when we started as we were doing our research, and we went to many places to research. We went to the Schomburg Library in Harlem, New York, went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the New Smithsonian Museum, the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta, and a number of other places. And something that they shared with us at the Schomburg was that you have to tell the stories of your local people, because if you don't tell those stories, no one else will. And so that's why a big portion of what we're doing is focused on people from Indianapolis and or Indiana. And so we really want Mari Evans to be a household name. We want Etheridge Knight to be a household name. And what I want is for a young person or even a seasoned person, when they walk into the room, I want them to be inspired. I want them to look up at the images in the windows and say to themselves, wow, this person is from Indianapolis. They breathe the same air I'm breathing, and they've achieved this. What is it that I could possibly achieve? And so we definitely want people to be inspired and really to look at the possibilities of everything that they could do. So something else, and we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, I was very focused on including the African diaspora. So as I mentioned before, we didn't just want to focus on the Middle Passage and slavery. We wanted to talk about the continent of Africa and that rich heritage and culture that we came from and how that spread throughout the world. So many people don't realize that Brazil actually is the country in the world that has the highest concentration of people of color.
I didn't know that.
So we're spread throughout the world and we've made a big impact, but sometimes it's kind of a hidden thing. And so we didn't want that to be hidden anymore. And so the African diaspora refers to communities throughout the world that have resulted by this descent from the movement in historic times from Africa to the Americas and then around the globe. So as I said before, Brazil is the second largest Black population and it's only second to Nigeria. And so it's just important to know we're not just here in North America, we're not just here in the US, that we're all over and that we've had a huge impact. And so we wanted to have a more holistic picture of what that was all about. And so something that we tried to do as we were creating the center is to have images and symbols that harken back to African culture. And so in the epicenter, we have images about Sankofa, and that's the image you saw at the very front of the PowerPoint, and that means to reach back to gain knowledge. Yes, Sandra, it does have a huge population, and most people don't know that. So I'm glad I was able to share something with you that you didn't know before. And so we also have the Ankh, which is the symbol for life, Anansi, which is a symbol for wisdom, and then the clasped hands, which is a symbol for brotherhood. And so that is not a total symbols, those not all of them, but there were some that we wanted to kind of highlight to share with people. And if anyone has been to see Black Panther, when I saw it, and I've seen it twice, when I saw it, I was struck by the symbolism that I am learning more and more about every day and understanding, and how they parlayed that in the movie. And so it just reiterated how important that was for me to have that in the space, and I'm so glad that we were able to do that. Yes, Sandra, it was amazing. I dressed up and everything. So I encourage everyone, this is a shameless plug, to go out and see Black Panther. It's just an amazing, amazing movie. Even if you don't like comics and superheroes, you will just really love Black Panther. It is an amazing, amazing movie. And so something else that we want to talk about are some of the ancient kingdoms in Africa. Oftentimes the images that we see of Africa are people that are hungry, people that are impoverished, war-torn areas, but Africa is actually a very thriving continent. And again, it's a continent, which is a group of countries. It's not just one country. And so there's a lot of diversity there within Africa. But some of the ancient civilizations in Africa were the Axum Empire, the Kingdom of Ghana, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, the Ethiopian Empire, and the Maasai Kingdoms, and the Benin Empire. And so while Europe was experiencing its dark ages, in Africa, they were having a continent-wide renaissance after the decline of the Nile Valley civilizations of Egypt and Europe, Egypt and Nubia. And so it's important to put that in perspective because often we get the impression that Western civilization has all of the innovations and things that are great, and then everybody else is kind of following along. But it's important to put the continent of Africa and those cultures and those countries into their correct place in history. And so it's important for us to tell that story and for us to tell it often so that people have a good understanding of what that's all about. And so it's not just important for people of color, but also for other people to gain an understanding and to know where we've come from and where we are now. Okay, Kimberly Keaton has said she's been to Ghana, West Africa. She was there for an entire summer, so jealous.
Me too.
And she says her life was changed forever. That is amazing. My sister, Serena Hayes, was actually in the Peace Corps, and she was in South Africa for 2 years. I would love to get to the motherland, and that's on my bucket list. And I'm taking donations, shameless plug. But I can't wait to go and kind of visit that and just be there at the seat of civilization. So very, very exciting. I'm really glad Kimberly was able to do that. So here's a picture of Muhammad Askia the Great. And so he was part of the Songhai Empire. And it was the largest state in African history, the most powerful of the medieval West African states. It expanded rapidly, beginning with King Soni Ali in the 1460s. And by the 1500s, it had risen to stretch from Cameroon to Maghreb. In 1360, disputes over succession weakened the Mali Empire. And in the 1430s, Songhai, previously a Mali dependency, gained independence under the Soni dynasty. Around 30 years later, Soni Suleiman Dama attacked Mima, the Mali province west of Timbuktu, and paving the way for his successor, Soni Ali, to turn his country into one of the greatest empires sub-Saharan Africa had ever seen. So, at its peak, the Songhai city of Timbuktu, which we've all heard of, became a thriving cultural and commercial center. Arab, Italian, and Jewish merchants all gathered for trade. By 1500, the Songhai Empire covered over 1.4 million square kilometers. Wow. So that's just a snippet of one of the ancient empires of Egypt and, of Africa. And so that's just something that we need to know and something we need to share liberally. And so it's incumbent on us as information professionals for us to dig deep and learn about the world and about the people that we're serving. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Center for Black Literature and Culture. So as I said before, we worked with an external company to create the designs. And so we worked with RLR Associates, and that's their website there. Andre Parnell was the project lead. He did an amazing job of bringing a lot of ideas to the forefront. Rod Reed is the principal of that organization. One moment, please. Pardon me, I had something caught in my throat there. So this picture is a mock-up of some of the ideas that we had at the very beginning. And so you saw the pictures of how the space looked before we did the transformation. So it really just came alive and really brought all of our ideas and coalesced them, and really has made a place that people are really excited about being in, and it's very, very inviting. So if you have an opportunity to check out the RLR website, I would encourage you to do that. Someone's indicated it's a beautiful space. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that. And so it was very challenging. The timeline was very challenging. And also to have a lot of ideas swirling around with a lot of people at the table, and then to bring those to fruition. And so for many months, it was just words on the paper and ideas. And then as it finally came together, it really exceeded all of my expectations. And when people come into the room, they're really wowed by it. And it's moved many people to tears. So I would say that RLR and Andre did an amazing job with this project.
My husband was impressed by it when he came. He loved it.
Thank you. So we are using, in the Center for Black Literature and Culture, a bookstore model. And this is very different than anything we're doing in the rest of the system or even in Central. So it's a bit of a hybrid. So it's a combination of title boxes, so they might say poetry or sports or civil rights, and then those are broken down by the Dewey Decimal System. So if you're comfortable with Dewey, you're still able to navigate the space, but if you're not comfortable with Dewey and you're more comfortable with the bookstore model, you can kind of look at those title boxes and help that to guide you, and then kind of browse from there. That model has actually been really, really successful, and patrons have really taken to it. Staff members, including pages, have been able to navigate that space as well, and so we're really happy that we kind of went out on the limb and went for that. I was actually kind of nervous about doing that, but I said, okay, why not? We can go for it, and I'm glad we did, because it's kind of a little bit more inviting. And again, for people that are not familiar with Dewey, it just helps them to go into the space and kind of navigate it. But it is broken down by Dewey, so then you're still able to find the things that you're looking for. So with the collection development plan that we created at IndyPL, as I said before, we had approximately 10,000 items in our opening day collection. And so those are broken down into arts and entertainment, home and family, African American studies, children and teen, And then we also, of course, have a lot of poetry. And then we have music and DVDs as well as magazines. And so, again, we did not want the emphasis to be on slavery or the Middle Passage. We wanted to talk about the diaspora and where we are in the globally. We also have some popular magazines, as I mentioned before. We've got some scholarly journals, like the Journal of African American History, and that is printed by the ASALH, which is the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And so they're going to be having a conference here in Indianapolis in October of this year, and that was actually founded by Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson created Black History Week, which then became Black History Month. And that organization is still around. And there's a local chapter here. And if you're interested in participating in that, feel free to send me an email and I can give you that information. We're also focusing on literature for children because it's so important to stoke their love of reading, because we know readers are leaders. And the earlier you can get them engaged in reading, the better they'll be with everything else. So we conducted research, as I mentioned before, at NEMAC, the Schomburg Library in Harlem, the Civil Rights Museum, and then also at Enoch Pratt Library in Baltimore. We did a lot of research, went all over the East Coast as well as in Georgia to get some best practices and some ideas about how to shape and create the space. Thank you, Kimberly. The email address, I'll have that at the last slide, and so you can refer to it there. Thank you. So our opening was on October the 21st of 2017. And Roland S. Martin was our keynote speaker. So he's a nationally known journalist and television host. He was an amazing, amazing speaker. We had about 2,000 people in attendance. We were standing room only in the auditorium. Even I was sitting on the stairs. I didn't even have a seat. We also had the overflow full and everything else was filled. So that, again, exceeded my expectations. I knew we were going to have a really good crowd, but I had no idea that it would be something that large and that people would be gravitating to it. And so I think the time was right to have a project like this. Another reason that Lilly Endowment funded us was because they had also funded the NEMAC. And so they felt this would be a great complement to have something not like the NEMAC, but similar to that here in Indianapolis. And I think that was the right move because people have been thirsty for this kind of venue. Agreed. And so this is just a picture of Roland during his keynote address. And as you can see, the room was filled. And the picture to the right actually is the crowd singing Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is the National Negro Anthem. And so that was quite a moving time to just have everyone kind of in unison and on the same page. So it was a really, really exciting day. So NEMAC is the National Museum for African American History and Culture, and that's actually in Washington, D.C., Sarah. Thank you, Kimberly Keaton. She's on top of that. Okay. So that's the new Smithsonian Museum. So here's another picture from opening day. And so that vantage point is in the Simon Reading Room, which is in the Cray, which is the original portion of the library that's 100 years old. And so that was standing room only. People were all over the mezzanine, and it was just really, really amazing. The picture to the right, those are the storyteller drummers. And so they drummed from the auditorium to the Simon Reading Room and up the stairs to kind of celebrate our entrance and our beginning to, have the space open. So it was a really, really amazing time. And you could just really feel the positive vibes in the room with everybody. Everybody was really, really excited. Sarah Baldwin, you got to go back. It's amazing. I've been twice to the NEMAC in D.C., and it's overwhelming in a great way, but the more you learn there, the more you know you don't know, and you want to bring that to other people. So it's amazing. You got to get back.
I can't wait to see it.
So Kimberly Keaton asked about what papers we have and who has donated to the library. So we don't really have a lot of papers at this point. We are working with the Indianapolis Special Collections Room because they're more of an archive. So they would be the place where they would store things. But we do have a couple of people that have been interested in giving us some things, and we're still kind of taking a look at that as we move forward. Definitely, Sarah, tag along with your husband in June and try to go during the middle of the week. That's the best time to get in. Yes, definitely get the tickets before you go. That is the best thing to do. So here are some events that we've had previously. Aliyah Bundles, who is the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker, she came and spoke about her newest book, which is targeted to 4th through 8th graders, all about Madam C.J. Walker. It's an amazing book. Even though it's a lower level, I still learned a lot from reading it. I learned so much from just listening to her. She is such a torchbearer for history and for what her family has done and their legacy. And I'm really glad that I was able to meet her in person and to hear that story. So if you ever get an opportunity to hear her, please go and check her out. She is a native of Indianapolis. She actually graduated from North Central High School, and she still has a lot of ties here in the city. She comes back a lot for different programming, and she's really concerned about the city and about the legacy and people still knowing that information. So she was an incredible speaker. Yes, Sarah wants to go rent a bus and go to NEMAC. I say let's go for it. I would be willing to go a third time. Another event we recently had was an author, Rochelle Riley, and she's written The Burden, African Americans and the Enduring Impact of Slavery. So what this is a powerful collection of essays that talk about the burden and how it's still real and how people of color are still dealing with the effects of slavery. And so Aliyah Bundles wrote a chapter in there. Rochelle Riley wrote a chapter. Tamara Winfrey Harris, who's a local author, and she's written The Sisters Are All Right. She also wrote a chapter. They opened up the program by talking about people that were enslaved here in Indiana. So sometimes we feel far removed from that and we think, oh, that just kind of happened in the South, but it was all over the country. And again, that's just information that we have to know and we have to confront. We need to deal with it so we can move on. If you push it under the rug, you're going to trip over the rug. And so that was a really powerful conversation. So I would encourage all of you to check out that book. It is at Indianapolis Public Library. And again, it's The Burden by Rochelle Riley. I think we've got about 5 people on the bus, so if you're trying to get on the bus to go to DC, you better sign up now because it's going to be full soon. So something that we have going on right now is Meet the Artists, and this is our 30th year, and it's Shades of Pearl Showcase. So for our gala, we actually had Vivica A. Fox to be our keynote. She was an amazing person. She actually is a native of Indianapolis. And so let me clarify that because I talked to Senator Donnelly and he was trying to cut her in half and split her up. So she was actually born in South Bend. She lived there until she was 4. Then she moved to Indianapolis. So we decided we're going to share her. And so she had her formative years here in Indianapolis. She actually graduated from Arlington High School. And then after she graduated, she went on to the big beyond in California and, you know, segued, became a huge star. And so she was so excited to be in the space, her pictures in the space, and she was moved to tears and really excited about the love from the local community. And so that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to shine some love and light on local people because sometimes you just kind of ignore the people that you might see in the grocery store, or, you know, their cousin or their sister. You're like, who are they? But they're important and significant significant to the history of Indianapolis. And so the showcase is going to be going on until April the 1st. And so that again is at Central Library, which is 40 East St. Clair Street, downtown Indianapolis. And you can see the exhibits anytime the library is open. And so we have a lot of really great artists there. And it's a retrospective of artists from the last 30 years. And again, Tony Radford is our artist in residence, and it was his brainchild to start Meet the Artists. And it's just grown and grown over the years. So it's been really, really incredible. So something else that we have, part of that display, is that we have the Lynch Quilt Project by LaShonda Crow Storm. And so the Laura Nelson quilt was there 5 years ago. And that is a vision of a African-American woman who was lynched. And she was also lynched with her son, but that's not showing in the quilt, it's just her. And so we've had some powerful dialogues about that, and some very painful. Some people wanted us to take them down, but again, it's the enduring legacy of slavery. And often people don't understand lynching, they don't realize how widespread it was, how many people were lynched, and so this is an opportunity for dialogue and then for healing. So yes, that image was very, very powerful. So we're going to buzz through the last couple of slides here. I kind of made those pictures too large there, so I apologize. Kind of changed when I went to this setup. But one of our next programs is March 27th, which is a Tuesday. It's going to be at 6 p.m. in the CBLC, and it's The Long Road to Hard Truth. And this book is actually about the 100-year journey to create the NEMAC, so the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC. And so this is by Judge Robert Wilkins. He's actually from Muncie, Indiana. He went to Rose-Hulman, and so he's going to be speaking about this book. He was actually there when George Bush signed off to create the space. And so I can't wait to hear him. Again, that's March 27th, 6 p.m. In the CBLC, and you can check us out on Eventbrite if you'd like to reserve your seat. Again, all of our events are free and open to the public, but that just kind of lets us know how many people will be coming. So feel free to check that out. Another event we have coming up October 5th is Kevin Powell. He's an author and activist, and he's most recently written The Education of Kevin Powell, A Boy's Journey into Manhood. And so he'll be at Central Library on October 5th of this year, and so we're really, really excited about having him come. Tracy Smith, who is a National Poet Laureate, she's going to be in Indiana in November, and she will end her worldwide Indiana tour at Indianapolis Public Library at Central Library, and that's going to be November the 29th. Again, that's free and open to the public, and Indiana Humanities is working with us on that. So she's going to be talking about poetry and the cosmos, so she should be an amazing person to hear. So I'm just going to leave it there, and then I'll open it up for questions. For any questions that haven't been asked, feel free to do that now. And my email is there if you need to contact me. And the symbol that you see on the screen right now, that symbolizes Anansi. And some of you might have heard of Anansi, the spider, who is very wise. And so that's a symbol for wisdom. And so wisdom is something that I'm striving to attain, and also to share that with people as we move forward. Okay, I see some people are typing. Thank you, Gina DuVernay. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Are you related to Ava? Thank you, Pamela. Oh my God, I love your sister. Okay, fangirl. And I've been following you too, because you're doing a lot of things in the library world. Please email me. Oh, I'm glad you love your sister. She's amazing. I went to see A Wrinkle in Time, Amazeballs. Tell her I loved it. Sorry. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed everything, Sandra. Yeah, there's so much for us to learn, and the more we learn, even myself, the more, there is for me to know. And so there's so many powerful authors, like James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni and Gwendolyn Brooks and Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni. We can just go on and on. Hakeem Abudi, who's a famous poet. And so we just have to delve into it and just dig deep. Thank you, Jerry. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Leanne, I'm glad you thought it was interesting. I appreciate you taking the time out. Oh, please visit. And just to let everyone know, the Center for Black Literature and Culture is open anytime. Central Library is open, and we're open 7 days a week. So lots of time for you to be able to come and enjoy. We do sometimes live stream on Facebook some of our events. We're trying to get a dedicated hotspot to make that a little bit easier. But you can check us out on the website, IndyPL.org/CBLC, to kind of see what we have coming up. And we'd like to remind everybody to not forget your LEUs, very, very important. Thanks for coming, Gina. We appreciate it. And Sarah Baldwin is about to type something, so we'll wait to hear what she has to say. We do not have a specific Facebook page. IndyPL just has a broad page, and so you can try to look for some of the things we have there. Thanks for asking, Sarah. But if you want to be placed on our mailing list, feel free to send me an email with mailing list in the subject line, and I can definitely add you to that. And Sandra is typing something.
And this is Kim from the State Library. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Nichelle for coming. She is always so willing and so willing and just so wonderful about collaborating with us. So we just appreciate you being here today. And I have learned a lot today too. I have had the opportunity to go to the center and see it, and it is beautiful. I encourage anybody to come and check it out. Also, if you notice, I did put a link to a survey for today. Please make sure that you fill out the survey so that we can do better about offering better webinars, and also you let us know things that you would like to see or topics you want to know about. And also, as Nichelle mentioned, please make sure that you get your LEU. You should see it now. Just click on the link, and there's instructions there at the bottom. So again, we do thank Nichelle, and we'll be here for a few more minutes if anybody has any more questions.